皆様、ご機嫌うるわしゅう。ビヨンドザフレームフェスティバル公式ナビゲーターのバーチャルドール届ゆかです。日本初の VR 映画に特化した国際映画祭ビヨンドザフレームフェスティバルは2月12日金曜日から21日日曜日まで10日間にわたって開催中です。オンライン会場で国内外から厳選した VR 映画を配信しているのに加えて、ほぼ毎晩トークイベントを行い、Zoom でのライブ配信と YouTube でのアーカイブ配信をしています。最終日21日日曜日のアワードセレモニーでは、配信作品の中から3作品にアワードが授与されるほか、審査員の園しおんさん、大宮エディさん、福田敦さん、さらにアンバサダーのコムアイさんもご登場。もちろん僕も参加します。映画祭について詳しくはビヨンドザフレームフェスティバルの公式サイトをチェックしてくださいね。またこのライブ配信では日本語と英語の通訳が利用できます。画面右下の通訳ボタンを押して日本語か英語の通訳を選択してください。それではお待たせいたしました。今夜のイベントは VR アニメーションにおけるユーザー体験とインタラクションの重要性と題して、ビート監督の伊藤圭介さん、ザ・ライン監督のリカルド・ラガナーロさん、ムンクの叫び VR 共同監督のシャルル・アヤットさんがご登壇。モデレーターは株式会社ニューリアー代表で新千歳空港国際アニメーション映画祭フェスティバルディレクターも務める土井信明さんです。土井さん、よろしくお願いします。
どうもこんばんは。
Good evening from Japan, and I'll be serving as the moderator. My name is Nobuaki Doi. And so this is the third day of the Beyond the Frame Festival, and the title for today is The Importance of User Experience and Interaction in VR Animation. So we are hoping to take up this theme with our speakers. Now I'd like to briefly introduce myself. I have this company called New Deer, and I'm trying to introduce all kinds of animations from around the world. And I have been a critique of animation, and then after that I started up this company so that I can distribute foreign films to Japan, and also I am helping produce animations here in Japan as well. And I was approached to serve as the MC today, and I actually am not a specialist on VR. I am rather focused more on 2D films and non-interactive type of films, but recently I have been interested in what's happening in the VR world. And I am the festival director for the new Chitose Airport International Animation Festival, which is held in an airport for 4 days in November in Hokkaido. So I believe this is the only animation festival that is held at an airport. And there are some competition. And starting in 2019, we have also included a lot of VR works. Our festival is focusing on new ways of using animation. So VR is really at the forefront of new developments. And so we do have a lot of VR films in competition. And I started getting interested in VR just recently, but 2 years ago in Austria, there was a digital festival for computer animation. I served as the judge there. And VR is being used not just for entertainment, but also in other fields as well. And so that led me to be interested in VR. So when I served as the judge in the computer animation, Manic VR got the grand prize. It was about a schizophrenic person and trying to share what the world he sees is like. And therefore, VR use is now spreading. It was about a bipolar person, and so it is now spreading. And last year, at our festival, Baobab Studio, it's a VR studio, but Eric Dernal And now his latest work is being released. But within entertainment itself, within the film, the audience is brought into the film, and the audience becomes part of the story. I believe that that is really exciting and very thrilling. So VR is now developing, and I see a lot of potential in using VR technology. So today we have 3 people with us, and I believe that some of you have already seen some of their work, and it's very interesting. So today we look forward to hearing from all 3 speakers. I'm very sorry I have spoken enough now. But in any case, now I'd like to introduce the 3 directors. I'd like to call upon them. The first one is Keisuke Ito, a VR animation director. And his piece now being screened is Beat. So Mr. Ito, can you turn on your camera and unmute yourself? So good evening. Hello, good evening. So if you can briefly introduce yourself and just say a few words. Yes, I am Keisuke Ito. I'm a freelance 3D CG creator, and I am also serving as a VR director. And I am really thrilled to speak to the 2 other speakers because I'm a great fan of them. So I look forward to this session. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to Ricardo Laganaro. And he is now coming in from Brazil. I believe it's really early in the morning. We were afraid that you might not make it on time here, and your film is The Line. So Ricardo, so
Hello.
can you turn on your camera and also unmute yourself? And if you can briefly give us a self-introduction. I believe I heard you just a little bit now.
Yes, I cannot start the video like I'm trying to push the button, but I think the host has to allow me to start the video.
なるほどです。じゃあちょっとすみません。
Okay, so then
Okay, now
the secretary.
now
Oh
it's-
yes,
yes. So,
yes, we now see
Hi.
you. So then, if you can briefly give us your self-introduction.
of course. So my name is Ricardo Laganaro. I'm from Brazil. I am partner and chief storytelling officer at Arvore Immersive Experience, a studio that's here from São Paulo, Brazil. I've been working with VR since 2013. I began working with dome projections, and then because of it, I began to work with VR in a studio that made a lot of big films here in Brazil, like City of God and Constant Gardener. And then since then, I've been making 360 videos. And then in 2017, I decided to just make VR and immersive content in this studio that I became partner called Arvore. And then in 2019, I finally made my first interactive piece in VR called The Line. We had the premiere in Venice Film Festival. And then there we won the award of Best VR Experience. And then this year, 2020 actually, we launched The Line for Oculus Quest with the hand tracking feature. It was one of the global launch titles of Oculus Quest for hand tracking. And then we also we submitted the piece, and then we also won the award of Outstanding Innovation for Interactive Media for the Primetime Emmy. And that's it. Like I've been researching immersive storytelling since 2013, and it's really great to be here.
Thank you very much. And the third person would be from France. We have, I think it's just around about noon, but he directed the Screen VR, one of the directors. So we have Charles Ayat. Can you turn on your video and unmute yourself, please?
Yes. Hello. Bonjour, donc je m'appelle Charles Ayat, je suis VR designer et je fais de la VR depuis 5 ans maintenant, depuis le projet qui s'appelle Sens VR qu'on a fait avec Red Corner et Arte, qui a fait plusieurs festivals internationaux, et suite à ça, on a continué avec un projet qui s'appelait Seven Lives. Et du coup, plus récemment, The Scream, qui a été dans plusieurs festivals, à Venise notamment. Et voilà, je m'intéresse toujours à la réalité virtuelle et peut-être dorénavant aux expériences multi-utilisateurs. Et aujourd'hui, on va parler d'interaction, et c'est des choses qui me plaisent beaucoup parce que le médium qui est la réalité virtuelle a énormément de choses à expérimenter, à découvrir entre le jeu vidéo, la narration et tout ce qui a trait au corps aussi, au déplacement, au mouvement, aux gestes. Donc voilà, je suis très ravi de participer au Beyond the Frame Festival.
皆さんはじめまして、VR デザイナーのシャル。
Nice to see you. My name is Shao Ayat. I have been involved in VR for about 5 years, and my first work was Sense. It's not in Japanese, but this is a Sense VR, and we made this towards Arte of TV in France, and then after that was Seven Lives. And then after that, I created this work, the Screen VR. And all of them have been presented to some international film festivals. And this Screen was presented to the Venice Festival. And VR, I'm very much interested in this genre, and particularly from now on, multi-user dimension, and also how to make the VR experience physically is what I would like to pursue. And also the game aspect of the VR, and also the commonality with the film are my interests. Nice to see you all. Sorry, I forgot to explain, but Charles is going to talk in English, and then that will be translated into Japanese, and then that will be translated into English. So, we have the three directors introduce themselves, and first, I would like to make a presentation, present all the works of the three directors. And then after we see that, we would like to have panel discussion and talk about the user experience, or the importance of the user experience, and how to connect the VR to users and to reach as many people as possible. And then after that, we will be entertaining questions from the viewers. And to the viewers, if you have any question to ask, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions, please type your question in, and we will try to respond them at the Q&A session. And towards the latter half, there is also a session where the three directors can ask questions to each other. So probably you can think about the questions you want to ask while you watch the presentations. So thank you very much. First, we'd like to have the first presentation by Ricardo-san, which is titled The Line. So please, Ricardo-san.
Sorry, can I share my screen? Yes. Right. Can you guys hear me?
聞こえます。
Yes, we can.
Okay, so now I'm sharing my screen. So let me see if you guys are you guys seeing my screen? Wait a minute. So can you guys see my screen or not? Let me just do it again. Okay, I think now it's... Can you confirm if you are seeing the screen saying the story only works in VR? Okay. So as I said, I'm going to do quicker my presentation. So I began working in films in Brazil, and then worked in this company that made these films, and making this piece for this dome that it's called this museum called Museum of Tomorrow, that was going to be like open for the Olympics in Brazil 2016. I made this piece for the dome called the Cosmos, the cosmic portal, sorry. And then after this piece, and then finally the line at Arvori. So when we began working with this piece, so the presentation stopped a little bit. I don't know why. So I'll begin talking and I'll wait the presentation to come back. So we decided to have some premises because it was the end of 2018, and we realized that at the time, at least, we couldn't see a lot of interactive pieces that had beautiful stories and that were made for everyone, not only for gamers, because we understood at the time that usually we had 360 video with very beautiful stories for people that like stories, and we had interactive pieces that were more on the game side for gamers, right? So we wanted to have the best of both worlds and see if we could create an experience that were for everyone and could present the whole potential of VR, but in this interactive way, and not losing the power of storytelling, and giving people the possibility to not only go inside the world that we were inviting them, but all interacting that story with the story, and using that as a tool to enhance the feeling of presence, making people really feel that they are present in that world, interacting by that, but not playing as a game. And then, so my presentation, I don't know, it stopped, so I will continue. And I'll try one more time to make it work. Sorry. But then we realized that we didn't know how to make VR interactive pieces like that. We had a game that we launched before called Pixel Ripped 1989. And I had made a lot of 360 videos, as I said before. And we understand that the only way to make this experience work well, can you just confirm if you guys are seeing my screen again? Okay. If we made like a story work with very meaningful interactions. So how we can create interactions that would be like metaphors for the narrative arc that we were creating. And there is no like books about it. Like it's a very new medium, so we had to test. That was the only way to learn while we were doing the experience, how to make it. And then we would decide that the story would be a love story that would be in São Paulo in the 40s. São Paulo is my hometown city, and the whole team is here in Brazil. And then we decided that we would create a very simple prototype. So we call it like a proof of concept. So we decided that we would make this guy, this little guy, that would be in the scale model of São Paulo. And we created on a software called Quill, this very simple scene that we would have this voiceover that is me like talking there. And then we tested if we were able to follow a story through very, very simple interactions like this one that was in the video. And the presentation is also off again, but I'll try to make it come back. And then if we could follow the story using our bodies, because this was something that we realized that could be very new, how to follow a story moving your body in the world. When you are watching a film, and even when you are watching a 360 video, you are stopped. You are not moving yourself. Maybe you're just rotating a little bit, but not moving the entire body. And then we wanted to test in this prototype if people could follow the story with their bodies and not losing the connection, right? And then, okay, if you can go to the slide number 12, 13, 14, please. 15 now, sorry. Yeah, because, okay. And then having these meaningful interactions that would be very, very well related with the story, and in this fable mood when you have also like a message, a beautiful message in the end, and in a fantastic environment, something that could happen just in this magical world that we're creating. Can you go to the next slide, please? And then we realized with this prototype that we could do that. So we created this framework at Warvary that all our pieces would have to be very user-oriented, and we should be iterative, which means that we always will create one version, very simple, test with users, see what worked or not, and then do another one, like increment this version with all the learnings we had with the first one, and then always do like that. So different from making a film that we have like writing a script, and then going to pre-production, and then going to filming, and then going to editing. We call this waterfall process. We know that we understood that for doing interactive pieces in VR, we couldn't do that because we don't know what works. So we have to create a small sample, test it, see what works, rewrite, make it a little bit better. And then we were moving like each step, but having like the whole thing ready in a simple stage, learning and doing again. So if you go to the next slide, and the next slides, you're going to see, you can because sorry, I forgot this one. We had like three main pillars: the narrative one, the audiovisual, and the system, and we couldn't know how they could work well together. So now you can go to the next one and the next one. One more, because I think I'm out of time. So we had this first, after the proof of concept, we did this tech demo with no stories at all, but we wanted to test the quality bar, the visual quality bar that we could achieve having one simple interaction with like this one, that we could move this little bus in this really simple scale model, but having the visuals on the maximum quality that we could achieve with the team. And then after that, you can go to the next one. We decided that we had to learn also how to move our body in a way to create emotions, because since I'm a film director and the team also working with films, we didn't know how to create emotions through body movement. And then we decided to talk to contemporary dancers because they are experts in creating motions, moving their bodies. So we made this workshop trying to learn and understand how we could use our body movement to create emotions that were completely related with the narrative arc we had with the story. Then you can go to the next one, please. Can someone tell me if I'm out of time already, because I don't want to be more than I can, and then I can continue this discussion, or how many time do I have still?
でもそんなに気にしないで大丈夫ですよ。
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry
okay.
about time.
Okay. And then after that, after doing the proof of concept and knowing that was possible to follow a story moving the body, and then the tech demo where we understood the quality of the image, then the workshops, understanding how to use the body, we actually began to work on the piece. And doing this incremental process and iterative process, as I talked before, we decided to prototype the first idea of the experience in live action. So you can go to the next slide. So we made like a role playing using these cardboard boxes and post-its and these tapes. We could create in a very simplistic way. If you can play the video, please. We could prototype very quickly the whole story, pretending that we were doing it. So the narrative designer was reading a script, and one of the artists was playing as the player, and the other one was playing as the characters, as you can see here with an action figure. And then we could understand very simply what kind of commands of the voiceover and the geography of the scale model, if it was working good or not. And it was very simple. Like by doing that for 2 days, we understood so many things already so quickly, because we didn't have to waste time like developing on the software. We could very quickly change even the shape of the model that you can see here, that it's a U, change it, because in the beginning it was more like an island and the player was going around it. And we just by doing this live action prototype, we understand that this would not work because it would be very small. It would be impossible to see the elements of the model. And then we changed it for this U form. So it was very, very nice to use this strategy. So you can go to the other one, please, and play the video. Yeah, this one. And then we begin to do what we call the gray boxes. So then we begin to using the same shape we used with the cardboard boxes on the previous movie, we did like a very, very rough version of the whole thing. And then we could begin to test the interactions with these yellow buttons. So all the interactions were just these yellow buttons, but we could understand where we have to interact. And then I think the door will open soon. We could also have the sense of scale in VR of the whole space, and also have the feeling of the timing of the whole experience, and then begin to adjust the texts, like the voiceover and the narration, and how all elements would work together. And this was also very simple. We did like in one week or two maximum, and we could also already have the full sense. But then we had all the elements that I show in that slide quickly: the narrative, the systems working, and the visuals, even if it's super simple. Then we can go to the next one. I'm almost finishing. And then we decided, instead of trying to make the whole thing working, we did what we call this vertical slice. So we had the simple visuals for all the model, but everything already there. And then we did just one slice that we begin to use the quality bar that we tested on the tech demo with the little bus. And then this was very nice, because doing that, we understood how long we took to make just this vertical slice. And then we could like understand better the schedule, how to finish the whole thing. And actually, this was the piece that we sent for the Venice jury. So this was also a very good strategy to show the piece for a big festival, even before it was ready. Because if you were trying to make the whole thing at the time, we wouldn't be able to finish in a very good way. So we on the submission, we explained that. So you can feel and understand the whole story by seeing the gray box, And in the middle, there will be this vertical lines that will show the quality that we'll have in the entire piece when it's done. And it worked. So then you can move to the next one, please. And then we have the interactions. So we really wanted to make this piece for everyone, as I said in the beginning, not only for gamers. So we tested a lot through all these stages, what kind of interactions we thought could be very natural for everyone. And since we were in the setup of Brazil in the 1940s, because we want to have this feeling that it's familiar for everyone. When you put a headset, sometimes you expect to use something to see something that is very modern and like blue and lasers and things that are very like for young people. And then suddenly you have this old model of São Paulo, and it's brown. And then we have all these old devices that everybody can relate to and everybody already interacts in their lives. And then we begin to test how to create it in a way that even using joysticks, that the first versions were with joysticks, the movements were very similar to the ones you could do in real life. And then making it in a way that people that never used a joystick before said, oh no, I know how to push this button or how to turn this lever, because they were objects that not only the design, but the type of movement you had to do were very similar to objects that everyone could relate to. And it's very nice to see like people with 70-year-old or my father and my mother, that they are 80-year-olds, not afraid to interact with the piece because the objects and the design of the piece are familiar for them. So that's it by now. I don't want to use all the time, and we can also continue the discussion after the other presentations. Thank you very much.
Ricardo-san, thank you very much. It was so exciting. The storytelling in VR. I really realized that there was a lot of trial and error, and the presentation was so exciting. And particularly, I do the workshop of, I hear that you did the contemporary dance workshop, and that's really interesting too.
Yes. It was a very, very nice insight we had, and everyone from the team, people that worked with computers for like 20 years, realized that we know nothing about our bodies and how to create emotion using that. And it was very important to create some of the best moments of the piece to have these understandings.
Probably the viewers haven't seen your work yet, so just like to show the trailer to give a feeling.
Of course, please. I'm not hearing the sound here. I don't know if it's for everyone.
So now that we heard your presentation, I believe that the interaction is much clearer. So having the viewers interact, the stages of the story increases.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you very much. Since the time is limited, so I like to have Ricardo later in a discussion. Now let's move on to the second presenter, Keisuke Ito-san. So would you like to briefly explain about your work? Yes, I was going to show that in the presentation, if it's okay. Yes, it's fine. So let's start with the presentation. So let me share the screen.
映りましたでしょうか。
Can you see it now? Oh, thank you. So, I'd like to talk about how we made Beat and also like to talk about the interaction. First of all, these are the works that I have created, and they all link up to the Beat. And I was first involved in CG animation, and before that, hand drawing animation. So these are the 4 works are created with CG and all have characters. And after that, I came up with a CG animation to make the VR contents. So I have installations and game products and others. And while I do these, technically, I believe it was still at the primitive age. So I wanted to create something a CG animation can be seen with VR, but I didn't know how to do. So I did some shooting games. And while I do that, I learned the programming, and I wanted to create an animation with VR. And then I came up with a VR animation, VR contents. And after I did the VR contents, I challenged making a VR animation, which was Feather, titled Feather. And this one has a character, and you can interact with this character. And this was the first time that I did that. And this one was presented at the Venice Film Festival, which was highly evaluated. And then the next one was the Beat, that which is being screened at this festival. And the biggest feature of this is interaction. I was very particular about the interaction. And what we use here is the heart device. And please look at the trailer. I think you have a better idea. Can you hear the sound? The one you see at the front of the screen is an animation you experience with heart. It's not here, but there's a heart, and it's going to connect with the heart of robot, and then the story goes on. That's how it works. The heart at the in the middle is the heart of the person who is experiencing this. So this is how it is. And when I first came up with the idea of this work, the reason why I wanted to create this was my encounter with the heart device. And I first thought, what kind of a device should be used to become interactive? And so I came up with this heart device. And it wasn't robot that I first came up with. This is actually a fetus. The heart of a fetus I thought would be very interesting to make a story. However, if it's a fetus, there is a connection. There should be a connection with mother and the fetus, baby. And that should be depicted. But I wanted to represent the beat of the fetus. So the beat of your own heart, and to connect it with the fetus heartbeat. So I thought that even though this interaction would be very interesting, it's really difficult to make it into interesting story. And then next I came up with a solar battery. to expose your heart to the light and have it generate power and let the robot move. But then you have to convert the light into the power and provide it into the robot. But heartbeat is something that is really live. But that such live experience and charging the battery didn't really connect well. So I thought that this wouldn't make a good story. So I decided to drop this. So in the end, I came up with this robot that the heart of the person who experiences or viewer and also the heart of the robot will be connected. And this represents the value of interacting our heart with each other. And so the heart of the robots and the viewers' robots, how they light and how they beat together, they would go hand in hand. And by doing so, I thought that they will have a deeper connection. And why I wanted to create a VR animation is that I love characters. And the characters that I create, and also the characters in the story world, I want them to deeply connected. And things that we can do with VR is to touch with our own hands or touch with controllers was the basic thing that all we could do. But more than that, I wanted to connect more deeply. And as I thought that your own heart, which is the origin of your life, the most important thing, if those are connected, then there couldn't be any deeper connection than that.
And that was the expectation I had as I created this piece. So this is what it would look like. Actually, we want people to hold this device in their hand, but because this is online, it's not really possible. But you have the stethoscope on your heart, and then you can feel the heartbeat. And the tracker will track where it is. And the heartbeats, how large the heartbeat is, that would synchronize. And so this is this heart-to-heart connection, the storyboard. So the characters will link together and interact with each other. And I was hoping that this could turn out to be a very, very happy story. So this is just my early sketches. So it's like opening up your heart to another person by trusting that person. And then you have this heart-to-heart connection, which you can see through this visual image as well. So initially, I thought that maybe we can have dogs in the piece, but it was a bit too complicated. So I decided that I should focus on just 2 robots. But it's all about communication. So if I'm going to make a series of this, maybe we can have a robot with a dog, or maybe different types of robots. So in the end, you have this squarish robot and then this more rounder robot together in this piece. And the square robot and the cylindrical robot will also connect with each other. And the character in the VR world and the real world can connect, and that's the kind of interaction that could be experienced. So that's all from myself. Thank you very much. Thank you. So Beat, I wasn't able to use the heart device, but when you don't use the heart device, you use a controller to provide energy to the robot. But what happens with the heart device? Your heartbeat is providing energy to the robot in the piece? Yes. Unfortunately, with the control bar, the rhythm of the heartbeat is uniform, but so you don't have this flexible response that was the initial design. But if you do use the heart device, so you use when you take off the stethoscope, it doesn't glow anymore, which means that power is not being provided. So it gets dark and you won't be able to see anything, and the robot also doesn't get any energy from you anymore. So without the controller, through the stethoscope, you can see that your heartbeat is actually moving things along. So more flexible responses. I see. So it is the ultimate kind of interaction. You're using your own life for this interaction. Okay, thank you very much. It was interesting. And I'm looking forward to the discussion later on. And now, thank you for waiting. The third person, Charles Ayat, the Screen VR. Can you explain about this piece?
Yes, sure. Hi, everybody. Maybe we could begin with a trailer from your part. If you can share your screen. Thank you for the sound. So, donc The Screen VR, c'est une expérience documentaire en réalité virtuelle sur le célèbre peintre Edvard Munch, norvégien, et particulièrement sur le tableau Le Cri.
So
this is like a documentary, and it is using the Scream by Munch.
L'expérience est coécrite avec Sandra Pogam, le sound designer Frank Weber, la société de production Ciné TV. Ça a été réalisé en partenariat avec le studio Backlight et le soutien du CNC. Donc, nous voulions, avec cette expérience, ne pas entrer dans le tableau, mais plutôt essayer de vivre une expérience intime avec Edvard Munch.
So we have Sandra Pogam, another co-director, and it's for Darklight TV, and CNC a French, and it's been sponsored by the French film agency. And so you want to exist together with the piece, not going into the masterpiece, but being present with the painting.
Donc, le tableau va inonder la pièce dans laquelle on se trouve et il va nous laisser face aux pensées et aux émotions, aux traumatismes que Edouard Munch a vécu et qui l'ont conduit à peindre ce tableau.
So, from outside of this picture, you want to look at how it invokes this trauma inside the viewer by looking at the painting.
Et le médium réalité virtuelle, il crée un lien introspectif, il questionne nos sens et notre cognition avant même toutes sortes de narrations.
So within the VR space, right in the middle, between the audience and the painting, we have the special effects, and we are trying to see how the audience will interpret this.
Il y a un lien très fort avec le courant artistique qui est l'expressionnisme et dont le tableau d'Edouard Munch est une référence.
And this special effect is about the expression by Munch as an impressionist.
Donc, il y a eu tout un travail préparatoire documentaire qu'a fait Sandra pour mieux comprendre le personnage. Et on apprend notamment qu'il a perdu sa cousine et sa sœur quand il était jeune. Il a eu des déboires amoureux et il a eu un fort isolement face à la société et un certain rejet du monde moderne.
Sandra actually did the study, and also in the background he had been isolated from society. He lost his relatives to death, and Sandra made the research about the background work.
Donc, par exemple, nous, dans l'expérience VR, on va découvrir que le cri fait partie d'un triptyque de 3 tableaux et aussi, par exemple, qu'il existe 5 versions différentes de ce tableau.
As you can see, we realize that this screen is one of the 3 paintings which are on the left side. And also, even this screen has 5 versions.
Donc, nous, on a choisi de chapitrer l'expérience en 3 parties, avec une première partie qui est le rapport de Edouard Munch avec la nature, un second chapitre qui est son rapport à la mort, et un troisième qui est son regard sur le progrès et le modernisme.
And after that, we decided to create this in 3 different chapters. One is Munch and nature. Number 2, Munch and the notion of death. And number 3, Munch and contemporary society, starting from left to right.
Côté conception, il y a eu toutes les recherches évidemment visuelles sur l'atmosphère, sur les décors, la lumière.
As you can see, what kind of an impact did the Mother Nature had? And we had this graphic, and first we explored how we can express that visually.
De la même façon, sur les nuages, sur l'eau, sur la fumée.
Just like the volcano, water, fog.
Mais aujourd'hui, on va plus s'intéresser aux interactions. Et donc, par exemple, ici, c'est un schéma qui nous montre comment on a pensé la prise en compte du joueur et pour renforcer son sentiment de présence.
And these days, I'm sure you're very much interested. This interactiveness is very important in VR films. So we believe that how the viewers would feel and how can we actually communicate to the viewers will be very important in the next step.
Donc, il y a toute la notion de l'environnement, comment l'environnement va réagir aux actions et aux déplacements de l'utilisateur. Ça va être des traces de pas au sol, ça va être le mur qui va changer de forme quand on s'approche. Et par exemple, il y a des volutes de peinture qui vont sortir. Si on les touche, elles vont disparaître, se résorber, et pareil avec de la fumée.
さらに詳しく申しますと、
And to be more specific, environment. How would that communicate to people would be a key point. For example, as in right top, there's a fog coming out, and the viewers would like to touch that, but when the moment he touches that, then the fogs disappear.
C'est un début de forme de story living, quand l'histoire progresse en fonction de nos actions. L'environnement donc, est pris en compte et attire l'utilisateur grâce à des affordances. Les affordances, c'est quand la forme d'un objet, d'une situation, induit l'action à son encontre.
そのためストーリーを進ませるために
So, in order to proceed the story, how would we have the viewers do the action was something that we really had to think about.
Donc, il y a des actions sur le décor, mais aussi sur nous-mêmes. Par exemple, ici, là, quand la main va toucher le mur, elle va prendre de la peinture ou alors en déverser sur le mur.
アクションという部分に関してなんですけれども、
In terms of action, it's not just the movement of the viewers, but what they can see. For example, this hand, when they see that, they move inside the hand, and vice versa was what we were trying to think.
Donc, quand on réfléchit à l'expérience du design d'une expérience VR, on doit anticiper toutes les actions de l'utilisateur. Et par exemple, avec cet outil qui s'appelle un flowchart, qui permet de dérouler une expérience pas à pas.
このようにですね、フローチャートを用い
As you
て
can see, we created a flowchart like this. And how would the viewers move? And then what kind of an result would that bring? And then what kind of consequences would that bring? So we thought about that in sequence.
De façon plus classique et en parallèle, il y a la trame scénaristique qui va détailler un peu chaque élément de la voix off ou d'autres actions.
こちらはですね、ストーリーテリングの部
This
分
is
で
the
す。
storytelling part. And this is a classic way of doing things, but we draw the stories and what kind of an effect should come at what stage, or what kind of a voice should come at what stage was something we thought about using this flowchart.
Voilà, d'autres images, c'est un storyboard qui a été fait par Dimos.
こちらはですね、ストーリーボード。
And that was storyboard.
Et ici, c'est des schémas pour discuter avec les développeurs, notamment sur le rythme des choses, sur les animations, à quel moment elles apparaissent et qu'est-ce qu'elles racontent en fait. C'est quoi le sens, quelles émotions on veut faire ressentir.
先ほどのページなんですけれども、こち
In
ら
the
は
previous page, that was storyboard. And right now, what you see is the instruction to developers or the plan. So what kind of an impact of effects should be utilized to bring about a certain emotion?
Donc voilà, plus classiquement aussi des recherches sur la direction artistique.
さらにこちらはスタンダードな部分。
And this one is quite standard, but how artistically,
Et ici,
what
c'est
kind
un
of instruction
partenariat.
should we give to the technicians?
un partenariat qu'on a fait avec le Musée de l'Homme pour faire la photogrammétrie d'une vraie momie que Munch avait croisée lors d'une exposition universelle en 1900. Et vous l'aurez compris, c'est une inspiration aussi très forte de son tableau.
こちらはフランスのミュゼ・ドゥ・ロムという
And this one is in the Anthropology Museum in France. And it is believed that this has a large impact on Munch.
Et voilà, on va rester là-dessus. Donc ça, c'est la momie réinsérée dans le tableau. Vous pouvez retrouver le cri en ligne et pendant la durée du festival sur Viveport avec les autres expériences.
はい、先ほど最後の1枚が、
The last one, the last screen, is the mummy that Munch was inspired. And you can enjoy all of my other works as well. So yes, please enjoy them. Thank you very much, Charles. This screen by Munch is something that everyone around the world knows. But in Japan, it's something I think we often use this something comically away from the original intention. But I think your VR works really convey the original meaning of the screen. And recently, we tend to combine the education and entertainment. And so horror could be really horrifying. But at the same time, this painting by Munch through VR, I believe that we can really experience through all the contents and probably gives a completely different perspective to this painting. So such transaction or transformation seems to be very interesting as well. So all three directors of the presentation was so wonderful. So I hope all the viewers can experience that. Now from now on, we'd like to begin the panel discussion. So this time, the theme itself is how to connect VR to users to reach as many people as possible. So this is the theme of the talk session. So all the presenters, you said that how to interact or how to involve the viewers is very important. And when you were making, you said that there was no example before, so you had to make it up and invent something. So I find that really interesting.
So now I'd like to question to all three, and then after that we can get into the discussion. But first, starting with Ricardo, I have a question, but
Okay.
in the line, when a user experiences the line, I think it's really interesting that it's kind of nostalgic. You have this miniature, and yes, it is a bodily experience as you go through this experience. But it seems as if you are really wandering around town, like in a gallery, or almost like watching paintings in a gallery, not really focus on something, but you can get some distance. You can look at areas where there is no story going on. So I believe you have this very loose kind of experience. But at the same time, there is this story that flows through. So I felt it was really interesting. And the contemporary dance, the dancers, and learning from them through the workshop. So my first question would be, I wanted to ask about the dancers, but so is it to understand how the characters would move inside your piece, or was it really about the body movements of those who experience your piece? Like I said, I felt like wandering around town, but So does it involve both? Or what did you think about the human body in your piece?
Yeah, I think like I show a very quick slide and we said all the kind of reference we try to get to create the line. And I think when we talk about VR, we have these two things that are completely different from watching a film, which is the body of the user and the space. So we understood at the time that we had to use what we call spatial storytelling in a way that we can learn a lot from architecture and from theater. So by using the position of the elements and the lighting to guide people's eyes. So then people would not be wondering, as you said, and they would be following the story the way we wanted. But then when we did also the workshop, we were trying just to understand how to make the user feel the story on their body in a different way than watching a film. And one of the first things we learned that we can use different levels. So we made the user begin the experience sitting on the floor, which is something already unexpected, because when you're going to watch the story, you sit on a chair. And then if we ask you, please sit on the floor, it subconsciously will make people understand, hey, this is an experience that you have to use your body. And then we have just a small photo album with a spotlight on top of it, and everything is black. So this is something, a grammar that we are trying to create to tell people, this is a story that will have the light, and you have to follow the light to understand the story. But not saying that, just making people feel that with their body. And then as soon as people open the photo album and there is no photos there is just the subtitles of the photos, but those photos are not there. Then a door appears, and then they are invited to stand up and cross the door to see the model. So all these little movements are movements that everybody knows how to do. It's not because usually when you have physicality in VR experience are for fast things and things that you need skill or dance movements or like dodging or something like that. And we wanted to create completely different emotions by the movements. And this was the kind of things that we learned in the contemporary dance workshop, how to make people move in a way that they don't feel tired, they don't feel afraid, because we want to make people feel very safe in this experience, and also how to use that to guide people in the way that they don't realize, but we are putting that then in the rhythm, in the pacing that we want them to be, to enjoy the experience. So usually when you see people seeing the experience for the first time, in the beginning they are excited and they are talking to people and then they try to understand what they have to do, but then they sit on the floor and then they stand up and then they cross the door, and this experience creates this rhythm that people stop talking, and they usually, when they take the headsets off, they are way calmer than they were in the beginning of the experience because of this theater guidance on the lightning and these movements that are slow, and they are related with this story, that it's a love story and it's a calm love story. So yeah, I think I talked a lot already. Sorry.
Yes, it's really interesting because VR usually is linked to movies or games, but as you just said, theater and spatial expression, we have to really think about that in VR. So it was quite interesting. Now, following this, I'd like to move on to Ito-san. So we heard from Ricardo about the body, the space. I believe it's linked to your piece as well. And both of your pieces bring out this very nostalgic feeling, because Ricardo's piece was something about everybody familiar with. We have these old items that everybody knows, but in yours as well, I believe there is this nostalgic feeling that everybody can understand. So I think that part is common. And also you have this stage setting. I think it's a 2-story stage. But how did you create your world? And how did you try to approach the experiencer's body? So you talked about the heart device, but between the viewer and your work, well, the heart is something that I feel is very delicate and sensitive, and connecting with the robot in front of you through the heart is a very essential feeling. So the viewer and the robot has to have this very private space between them. So you have this dark room where it's only you and the robot, and you have this very sensitive communication. So I needed to create a space for that. So you have this robot in front of you, and you have to think about what the robot is feeling as you connect to him or her. So it's somewhat like a spiritual world. So that's what I imagined. And so the up and down movement. So as you go down means you are going deeper and deeper into the emotion. And I wanted to express that and evoke that feeling by showing it on this in my piece. So if you go underground, you have this glittery lights in total darkness, but then because you have the heart, you are able to see through the darkness. And so the existence of the heart, you become really conscious of that. And then you can go into this very dark scene. So that's the way I thought about my piece. So let's say you are trying to celebrate your birthday with your lover. Where do you want to be? Quiet restaurant or maybe somewhere else. But a room where you want to stay with somebody precious to you. And you are spending time in such a room with the robot. So that's how I try to create the space. And what about the texture of the film? Because the robot's rusty parts, or it felt I could really feel the rust on the robot. So maybe that also brings you closer to the robot. Is that why you did that?
Well, I think that has to do with my unique creativity. But I love used things or old things. And I feel nostalgic to your old things. I'm originally from Yokohama City, which is near the sea. And there are some iron and steel factories. And they get really rusty with the sea wind. And when I look at the rusty things, I really feel nostalgic personally. And with that nostalgic feeling, when I create works, I can create good things for myself. So in that sense, I meant that's my personal uniqueness. Thank you very much. Next, my question is to Charles. Just as Ito-san said towards the end, he talked about his own personal, unique creativity or something that is connected with his own memory, which is reflected in the VR. Now, on the screen, Mook is from 19th century, and his painting is, of course, very famous. But with the painter himself, it's really difficult to share the same feeling because he's from a different age and time. And try to have that experience to viewers may be difficult. And also, you said that there's a little bit of horror element. And when I experienced this scream myself, I thought that I might myself scream out because of the horror or some fear. So the inside of a painter, to have that experience to the viewer, well, I think it's the emotion that aroused that experience. So fear and such experience that have to be struck at a very good balance. Particularly, Munch underwent a very hardship mentally. So it could be very difficult. So how to strike a good balance will be very difficult. You can't be too scary, but you still have to be true to the fact. And how did you strike the balance?
Bonne question. Pour moi, les émotions traversent le temps. Donc, et même si c'est au 19e siècle, on peut espérer ressentir les mêmes émotions. Et sur la balance entre l'horreur et, enfin, au moins les choses qui peuvent tendre vers ce genre-là, pour moi, on est plus dans la surprise et dans peut-être le nightmare, le cauchemar intérieur, des sortes de traumatismes qu'on va essayer de guérir ou au moins de comprendre, de ressentir. Et c'est vrai que quand on est face à une momie qui ressemble à ça, on peut être traversé d'effroi, mais chacun va avoir un rapport à ce qu'il voit, au corps, aux ossements, d'une façon différente. Je ne sais pas si la traduction se fait en direct, mais je peux continuer sinon.
Ah non, je prends juste, je me permets quand même de traduire, merci.
Okay.
なんかあれですか、先に話していただいてから、あれですかね、最後にまとめて通訳するという形になります。
How would the translation go? It could be either way.
And try in English. Is it better for you?
Yes, he wants to be translated. So I'd like to translate it into English. And of course, he's going to talk after this again, but first, now about the emotion. I, myself personally, be it 19th century or 20th century or 21st century, it transcends time. So what he felt at that time can feel through this work. I believe that we can all share the same feeling. And about the balance, striking a good balance, this work, there is a nightmare element and a surprise element, and people try to understand the balance. And I think it's important that people try to understand the balance. So personally, I don't really think about not to make it too scary, not to make it not so scary.
Et le personnage d'Edward Munch est quand même quelqu'un de torturé. Et même si on va avoir peut-être du mal à ressentir ce que lui ressent, on a tous un passif, on a tous vécu des choses difficiles à propos de la mort, à propos de peut-être notre place dans la société. Et c'est comme ça des liens qu'on essaye de tisser pour que les gens se questionnent à la fois sur eux-mêmes et à la fois sur Edward Munch.
Also, Edward Munch, the painter, always had suffering inside, and which is reflected in his paintings. And such suffering could be death, which all people fear, or could be his suffering in the society. And that is projected in the painting, I believe. And that's how we can understand this work. Thank you very much. when we think about what we can do with VR, all the works really delve into that deeply. So the panel discussion is really interesting. But now, since we have wonderful 3 directors with unique experiences, so you may have some questions with each other because VR has immense potentiality. So why don't you ask questions amongst each other? So Ricardo-san, do you have any question? Well, it could be to 2 directors or it could be to 1 director, but anything you would like to ask about the work?
It's kind of the same, almost the same question, but a little bit adapted. Like Kizuki, I know your work since Feather on Venice, and then I could realize that you had like evolution of how the interactions would be from Feather to Heart or to Beat, right? So what were the main learnings from Feather to Beat, more on the interactive parts, because we could notice as a user the difference. And for Charles it's almost the same, because Seven Lives is very abstract and it's very like oniric, and then on screen I realized that I think it's a little bit more mainstream. It's more for kind of all publics. So what was the difference of balancing the artistic side in one piece and not losing that in the other one to make it more accessible for everyone?
So why don't we start with Ito-san about the feather and then you're learning towards the beat. Yes. Feather was a very simple interaction. So you give a feather to a girl. So you use the sense, the contact, but it was just very simple. But this beat was very complicated. The program and some system aspect was very difficult. And what I learned that is that interaction, when I have a strong feeling that this is the kind of thing that I would like to create, it could be very technically difficult, or it could be that we still have to wait some more time to have that realized. So by creating this beat, I thought that difficult interaction is something that I have challenged, but such difficult interaction has a lot of potentiality. So difficult interaction is something that I would like to continue to challenge so that I can really expand the potentiality. And that's what I feel now. So I'm very happy that I've made this challenge.
Thank you. Now, Charles, can you answer Ricardo's question?
Yeah, and maybe I will answer with the prism of the interaction. In Seven Lives, we do the choice of invisible interaction and in the trauma. And for me, it's maybe a mistake because the user don't see what he do. And for me, it's like a director who choose the sequence, the plan, the montage, and more insight you have for the user, more he has feedback. And I think it's maybe rewarding to have that. And it's a little bit a lake in Seven Lives maybe. And in the Scream, we begin with a wheel of create an exploration in a big room, 10 meter, and we start with the exploration part. And after that, we understand it's maybe too complicated to be on store and in a very big place. It's not the same design. So we choose the small one, 2 meter on 2 meter. And but we continue on the exploration, and so sometimes it's maybe complicated to understand where you can touch, where you can move, and it's difficult for new public or beginner of VR experience, and so it's a balance between who is your public. If you want a gamer or everyone, and it's difficult for VR because the project are living a lot in festival, and in festival people have not such much time, so they want quick, they want discover a lot of things, and after that, when you are in your living room and you have time to explore a VR experience, okay, it's okay if you all is not everywhere on you, and you can looking for interaction, play, you are in another moment. So yeah, it's different, complicated question, and maybe for you, I have one of hand tracking, because I know you try this feature, and in Beats you want to touch the robots and maybe play with them like that, and I know, Ricardo, you do it with the line, but it's with the distance between the protagonist and the player. So what do you experiment with hand tracking?
Yeah, I think it's the idea that we wanted to make the story move using the user's body, right, as the storytelling device. So even when we had the joysticks, we tried to make the movements look as similar as they would do in physical world. So we had just to have people like pressing the trigger to activate the hand, but the movement was already very similar to the ones that they would do without the without the joysticks. So when we had to adapt to that, the interaction design was almost there. So we had more like a technical challenge to understand how to program the hand tracking, and it was like the beginning of it. So it had a lot of bugs and problems like that. But as soon as we solved this technical issue, the movements, most of them were already ready because of the design of the objects we did. So what we learned a lot, that like if you make the design of the objects that it's very natural, like for your hand, usually it's very not simple, but it's not that hard to make the hand tracking work. But in our case, it was easy because we had this grammar that we created that people would only touch the things that we wanted them to touch, the devices that we created. I think if it was more free and people could interact with everything, it would be way more complicated to make it work like good for everyone.
実はですね、観客
Well, actually, there was actually a question exactly like that from the audience. And this is the first VR online film festival in Japan. And VR is bit by bit becoming popular more among the Japanese people. But there are many people who have never experienced VR before. They don't know how to enjoy VR. Because you have a lot of these different platforms if you want to play these games, and you don't have those platforms. So, but now, Ito-san, enjoying VR and the difficulty of enjoying VR, how do you face that, and how do you try to resolve that? Well, I am using VR for storytelling, so the interaction and the story of VR, I'm trying to combine these two together, and that's the difficulty. And as Ricardo said, in VR, that the experience in VR and the actual real life experience, I really want to make sure that they coincide with each other, because the robot opens up his heart and shows the heart, but you also want the user to have the heart device held in a similar way with the robot. But then, can you touch all things that you see? And people may want to really touch everything around them in VR. But if there is an interaction there, the story theme will go off track. So you may want to touch something, you may want to play a game with something else, but I want to make sure that the viewer will follow my story, which means that I have to have a focus on where interaction occurs. And where you set that is very difficult. So the storytelling VR, I believe, is going to become more widespread now. And we still are in this dilemma, but I am really trying to figure out where this goes. Well, yes, VR gives us freedom, but on the other hand, if it's too free, the audience will get lost in where interaction occurs. So how you focus that interaction is probably going to be key. So Charles, how do you try to focus the interaction? What is your idea?
For me, there is many things to do. If you want your user to be captive, and you need to create a comprehensive tutorial with a clear intention for us, and we do not very good maybe on the screen, but it touch what is moving. If there is an animation, you can touch and you will have feedback. And all these real-time experiences, it's more like video game in the matter. So you can offer lot of possibility, and the user creates his story. And with the concept of affordances, element will call you, and you can touch, you can explore, you can follow a narration, but an environmental storytelling, all is speaking for the story. And it's difficult because we usually we are just a spectator, and you just listen and understand what you can. But now with this sort of experience, you need to act, and after that you discover, you understand the narration.
VR の黎明期ならではの
So this is at an early stage of VR, and because of that, we have immense potentiality, and that makes it really interesting. Now, Ito-san, do you have any question that you'd like to ask to two other directors? Personally, as an author, Ricardo-san, this about the story that you have come up with. There was a time when I thought about how to connect people heart to heart, and I think that is going to be my story. But Ricardo-san, is there anything that any story that comes from your own experience, and how did you come up with a story?
So it's kind of simple story in our case, like boy meets girl and wanting to be together. So, and we want it to be that simple so everyone could enjoy. But then I think when we put São Paulo, which is my city and the city like of my father, and a lot of the elements that we have there are historicals. So for people from São Paulo and from Brazil will recognize them. So we want to create a very simple story, but we want to make it has deeper layers. So if you are more like innocent or naive, you just will look for the guy and the girl and cheer for them to be together. But if you are more mature, probably you understand that the story is not about a love story. It's a story about fear of change and changing paths to do what you want. And then this was the part of the story that was harder to understand how to create these different layers. So it was interesting because in one side it was a very simple story that we knew from the start what was that. But then we had, through the iterations, through the testing, understand what kind of other layers we could put in the story in a way that make everything work together. Because we didn't want to make, to be like a very, very closed message, like, now this is a story about the fear of change and change the love story and the subtle layer. But I don't have like a simple or easy question, because we were discovering through time and during the production how to put these other layers using the interaction, using the body of the user. And the only thing that I could say that we were writing the story while we were doing the production the whole time. Like we just had like one like structure that was very simple, but everything we're trying to put on top of it, we were testing and see if it worked or not, and rewriting. So we had like more than 15 versions of the script during the whole process.
Thank you very much. So the writers, I think they have their own experience, and how to reflect that, I believe each one has his own method and way. Now, I'm so sorry, but we are running out of time, so it is almost time to say goodbye. But lastly, to the three directors, the theme is how to connect VR to users to reach as many people as possible. But once again, I would just like to give you briefly what do you think about that? And also, we have another question from a viewer. It's what advice would you give to those who are starting out in this area and want to create incredible experiences like yours? So these are the two things that I would just like to ask from each one of you. So let's start with Ricardo.
So for me, the first question is I think we have space for all kinds of stories, like more artistic, more experimental. But I think in order to create a broader audience, it's important to have stories that everybody can understand and relate to. And that's what we try to do with the line, making a gateway to VR in a way that everybody could relate. So I think it's important to have experimentation, artistic approach, and also this more commercial or mainstream experience at the same time. And the second one, I think it's find a way, like Keizuki did in the beginning of his first pieces, like he did by himself almost everything, but like finding ways to create pieces and showing it, because it's so new that if you do something that it's okay, probably it will be in festivals and probably people will know that. So like find ways to create and show to people.
Thank you very much. It seems that, well, Ito-san's Wi-Fi has gone. So let's move on to Charles, to the two questions that I asked.
I'm not sure to have the two questions, but for one, how do this sort of project? There is many things to do. If you have the skill, you can create prototypes on Unreal, on Unity. You have a lot of tutorials on YouTube. Another thing is to meet a lot of people, because it's very difficult to do all this part alone. Design, graphic, aesthetic, sound, story. So meet people, and maybe during the hackathon, to create some little project, but very quickly, and you meet interesting people. And and have an intense life, travel or things like that to have good story to tell to other people.
Thank you very much. The other question was how to connect VR to users and to reach as many people as possible. So once again, any thoughts about that after all this discussion?
I hope the answer is not put guns and boobs in your VR experience. And the good answer will be maybe find some IP or create maybe accessible stories with charismatic characters, because it's very difficult to exist today on the online store. So I don't know if I have the answers.
Thank you very much. No, you answered directly. So once again, we lost Ito-san. I hope that I'll be able to hear. Oh, I'm back. Thank you. I'm sorry about the Wi-Fi. So once again, how to connect VR to users and to reach as many people as possible. So once again, any new findings and also advice that you would give to those who are starting out in this area. Interaction. My two other directors are really thinking hard about that. So I thought that I should come up with ideas using my body, the physicality, and I now think that such potentiality is very important, and also to advise to those who are starting out, storytelling and interactions relationship. Experience. If it's strong, then it just deviates from the story. And so the interaction's interest tends to overwhelm the story. So then you have to think once again, what is this concept of the story? You have to go back to the beginning. Then I believe that you'll be able to come up with a very good relationship of interaction and story. And I'm really working on that right now. Thank you very much. So we now like to finish the session. VR, as you know from this session, I don't think anyone in the world has a right answer. So everyone is doing on his own belief, based on his own technology, and try to expand the potentiality and sphere of this VR. So we have so many wonderful works at this film festival. So, and some viewer asked question that it's really difficult to enjoy the VR, but all the works have just a surprise and some discovery.
So I hope that people just enjoy, be surprised, and experience, because it's very rare that we have these kind of surprising and enjoyable experiences. So with that, we had a connection between France, Brazil, and Japan. So thank you very much to all three directors, and thank you very much to the audience for staying with us. So let's see you again. Thank you. Goodbye.
イベントご出演者の皆さん、ありがとうございました。さて、ここからはビヨンドザフレームフェスティバル公式ナビゲーターの届きうかから改めて映画祭についてお知らせです。日本初の VR 映画に特化した国際映画祭ビヨンドザフレームフェスティバルは2月12日金曜日から21日日曜日まで10日間にわたって開催中です。3作品にアワードが授与される 本映画祭の審査員は映画監督の園志音さん、作家画家の大宮エリーさん、ブランドコンサルタントで株式会社スピーディ社長の福田敦さんという豪華なメンバー。さらにアンバサダーにはコムアイさんが就任。僕、映画祭公式ナビゲーターの届けうかもバーチャルの世界で生きる者として VR の様々な表現の発展を応援していきますので、皆様どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。もしよろしければ本日のイベントのご感想や VR 映画を体験いただいたご感想を SNS で投稿いただけたらとっても嬉しいです。その際はハッシュタグ BTFF2021 ハッシュタグ VR 映画でお願いします。また今日のアーカイブ映像は後日映画祭公式 YouTube チャンネルで3ヶ月間配信されますので、そちらもご覧ください。映画祭について詳しく知りたい方はビヨンドザフレームフェスティバル公式サイトをご覧ください。それでは皆様ご視聴ありがとうございました。